This is TWiT.
Microsoft earlier this week released Windows 11. We've heard about Windows 11 for quite some time. We got previews of how it was going to look. Some of us installed it on the Windows machines we have to play around with it. And if you are a subscriber of Windows Weekly here on the TWiT network, you probably saw a lot there as well. But it is finally time for everybody to get a taste of Windows 11. And joining us today to talk about his Windows 11 review is CNET's own Dan Ackerman. Welcome back to the show, Dan.
Hey, guys. Good to see you. And good to see my old colleague, Jason.
That's right, Dan. Good to see you, man. I love the beard.
It's my COVID thing, and I'm just sticking with it. And I feel like I'm just going to own it now.
Yeah, you wear it well.
So let's get into Windows 11. This operating system obviously is the next iteration of Windows. I think a lot of people were very happy with Windows 10. And so when Windows 11 came along, it was kind of a sort of, what is it about Windows 11 that makes it different from Windows 10? What is it that would kind of draw people into upgrading? I like what the headline for your piece, Microsoft's OS upgrade is subtle, but we like that. Tell me more about this subtle upgrade.
I'll be honest. That's a headline some headline writer wrote, but I identify with it. I understand it. I think a lot of it probably came down to somebody at Microsoft sitting around going, how do we get people to buy new computers? I know, we'll just pretend we need a whole new operating system, and that will spur this, round of replacement. The thing about operating, so I went back and looked at old OS reviews I had written going back to like Windows 8.1. Then we went through, 10 and everything else. I think the thing that you really want to look for is the more you notice an operating system, kind of like cinematography, the worse it is. You really want it to disappear into the background. And it almost as if you're talking about it too much and noticing it too much, then it's not really doing its job, which is to get out of your way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that I think is kind of the important thing here. There are these subtle upgrades that have been made, these subtle changes that have been made to sort of polish what was already a pretty strong platform. So, what are, as you said, it's kind of about selling machines for sure, but for people who already have their machine who can upgrade to Windows 11, what are some of kind of the standout features that you've seen in the operating system?
It's a small sort of hodgepodge of little helps and upgrades. The biggest thing, I think the big game changer is the ability to easily run Android apps from right within Windows. You can do that already. You can use BlueStacks. You can use all kinds of other emulators, but it's not something that Windows machines have been able to do easily in the way that a Chromebook can. And that's really one of the great reasons why Chromebooks have become so much more universally useful in the last couple of years, because $300, $500, you can do all the Chrome OS stuff, but you've also got the Google Play Store and its own little playground, and you can install, TikTok or Instagram or play mobile games, Android games on it. The problem is, of course, that feature did not launch alongside Windows 11. It doesn't even have a date, really, and that's kind of the biggest letdown, that the one thing that really was kind of a game changer isn't there. Instead, it's easier to snap windows into place in different structures on your, the little one here and this guy here and this guy here, and have them all pop back up. Okay. Multiple desktops, a little bit easier. That's actually pretty handy if you have all your work windows in one desktop and all your, personal social media ones in another, and game stuff in another. That's one of the few things I think that it's actually easier now to do in Windows 11 than on a Mac. And that's not something you're going to say very often. But I think that the real reason, the first thing everyone notices is that taskbar went from the, left side to the middle. The main reason they did that, I think, is so you'd notice something was different. But otherwise you're like, okay, what's the, but I moved it back to the left, just because that's where taskbar and the start menu and everything belong, on the left. But after a couple of days, I went back to the middle. I was like, you guys sold me on the middle. I couldn't go back. Once you go, to the next step in your evolution, you can't go back.
Right. So how did you move it over to the left side? Is that an option in Windows 11?
I think it's you right click
like
on it, you go to taskbar settings, and I think you can align left or align center. You can't align right. But I was a hard lefter. I was like, move it to the middle. That's just I thought that's just to show people it's something new. That's nonsense. Left. After using it in the middle originally, for the first whatever couple of days or weeks or on some other systems. But then it was like that middle just got into me. It got under my skin, and I had to go back. I had to run back to the middle aligned taskbar.
Wow. So yes, you've made the jump. You've stuck with the modern look and feel. Some of the other, so again, one of the big features that you talked about is the sort of workspaces setup that helps you to kind of set up a custom workspace for your home, a custom workspace for your office. Does it feel like Microsoft is delivering on the sort of branding around Windows 11, which was that this is an operating system meant for our sort of hybrid work life, where some of us are working from home, some of us are working in the office, and that we can sort of context switch? Do you think that Windows 11 lives up to that hype that they've tried to create there?
That is a really good contextual reading of it. Some of these features really do work well with the concept that I've got my laptop, but I'm working at home. So it's kind of my home machine and it's kind of my work machine. That's one of the reasons why I don't think, like, let's say the snapping windows to area is all that important, because if you're on your laptop, how many windows are you going to have open at once? Usually you're looking at one thing and then you flip to another. But the multiple desktops, that makes a lot of sense in that context. And I think what Windows 11 smartly does, and it's subtle, it's not like rocket science, but they put a lot of these things right in the taskbar. So if you want the different desktops, you don't have to search for it. It's right there. If you want some other, you just go right there. They have the Microsoft Teams thing. They call it chat, but you click on the little chat icon that's preloaded there. It takes you to Microsoft Teams. Now, I said, maybe I'm completely, out of the loop, but I said, the only time anyone's ever invited me to a Microsoft Teams meeting is if they work at Microsoft and they have to use it because it's for work.
Yes.
But other people have now told me, mostly in YouTube comments, which I try never to read, but I broke down and read a few, said, what are you talking about? We use Teams all the time. So maybe there's this whole culture of people who love Microsoft Teams that I have never encountered. I have been coastal elited out of understanding the appeal of Microsoft Teams, but maybe I'm wrong.
Coastal yeeted is what the kids are saying. No, this is interesting because I have, friends who work in sort of like Salesforce-y type companies, and they are all Microsoft Teams people. And so they, are always talking about, I'm over here going, oh yeah, I had my work meeting on Google Meet, and I had my call on Zoom, and they're like, what? We use Teams for everything. So you definitely understand where those comments are coming from, because I too was kind of confused about having that. I've got a Surface Laptop 3, I think is what it is, that I installed Windows 11 on to give it a go. And that was one of the things in the taskbar I thought, I don't really need this. Now, as you said, Android is not yet available the Android App Store is not yet available as a feature that I know a lot of folks are, very much looking forward to. But that makes me wonder, what are some other features that Microsoft has announced for Windows 11 that aren't coming in the first iteration of Windows 11, the one that folks are downloading right now in this kind of rollout?
The other big one that jumps out to me is as part of the upgrades to the Windows App Store, which again has always been frankly fairly terrible, but has gotten slightly less terrible over time. They said, we're going to open up this app store and let you download other people's browsers and let you download other software sales sites like Steam or the Epic Games, things that have their own ecosystems. So as of the last time I checked a couple of days ago, you could get the Opera browser. I think they had said they will eventually have the Epic Game Store, but that's about as far as they've gone. I think once you get the ability to get these apps fairly easily through that built-in app store, especially if it's things like Steam or GOG or anything that has like its own sub app store built in and frankly is game based, you'll see a lot more people use that. To be fair to Microsoft, Apple also has a macOS app store that I find pretty useless.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Totally understandable. So we don't have too much more time with you. I did want to talk briefly about Microsoft's new Surface devices, of one of which is the Surface Pro 8. And you've written a review over on CNET that, again, I know not your headline, but that talks about kind of Windows 11 and Surface Pro 8 working well together, which makes sense given what you said earlier about how Windows 11 was kind of a way to sell these new machines. So can you tell us about your experience with Surface Pro 8 and in particular how it worked with Windows 11?
That's why I think the Surface series, especially since around Surface Pro 3, has really worked out well. And people generally like these devices, which is not something you often hear about, let's say, Windows tablets, is because we've got the case where Microsoft is designing the operating system and the hardware. That's kind of what Apple does, where they're able to control the entire ecosystem. Lately, but not the chips. Apple makes the chips now. Microsoft did that with the Surface Pro X, where they kind of co-designed the chip that's in that. So it's not 100% yet, but I think that's why the feel is so tight on those Surface products. And the Pro 8, it's really nice. I actually used it as like my main laptop for like a week, and I didn't feel like I was really losing out on a lot. I found it very portable. It didn't quite sell itself as a tablet only, like when you're sitting in bed flipping through the news, you're going to watch something on Netflix. It's a little heavy and clunky for that. But for going out to coffee shops and outdoor little dining establishments here in New York, where everybody sits around and works because they can't really work inside, I thought the Surface Pro 8 worked great. And I really like the Surface Laptop Studio, which is the kind of hybrid, kind of like the Surface Studio desktop, kind of like the Surface laptop, a little bit of game graphics power in there. I feel like they have a good lineup this time that really hits on all the levels. Okay.
It's interesting that the siren decided to stop right after you stopped speaking.
It's still going.
Oh, okay. It was probably a ducking feature.
That's the emergency here somewhere.
That was so intense. It was like I was hanging on to every word as you were talking. It was getting more and more intense.
I live in a very fire-prone neighborhood.
Gotcha. Well, my last question for you is just any last thoughts, any final thoughts, I should say, that you have about Windows 11 or Microsoft's new round of Surface products that you want to let our listeners know about?
So we always tell people in general, when there's a new OS or an OS upgrade, you don't need to be the first guy in the block to get it. Let it roll around for a little bit, let it get tested, let people find the bugs. That said, Windows 11 was so widely distributed and so many people have been using it. My final advice to people has been, if you want to download it right away, it's probably fine. If you want to wait a while, that's fine too. Don't feel pressure either way. Just follow your heart.
Follow your heart. That's a great way to end this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. If folks want to follow you online, where can they go to do so?
Hey, just hit me up on @Dan Ackerman on Twitter. That's the best way. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.